Hello, friends. This is Chandrakant, and you're on Akul Mac Live. The COP26 is going on right now with the global leadership present in full numbers at Glasgow. And they're talking about the environmental debit, environmental credit, and environmental justice. To understand this, I will be joined by a very senior, eminent personality, Mr. Naval Gaunt, who is joining us from UK. Let's welcome him. Good morning, Neville. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Good morning, CK. Good morning, everybody. COP26. Yes, here we are. The 26th Conference of Parties after the one in 1995 in Paris. And what's happened since? Global warming, I think. Climate crisis. As Boris Johnson opened the Glasgow event, because the UK are hosting COP26 this year, and he said it's 1 minute to midnight. Wow. That 60 seconds is going to tick off really quite quickly, isn't it, if we're not careful? So what do you think, CK? We've heard a lot of chat around this discussion. We had the G20 meeting at the weekend, and noises came out of there. But we need to get away from noises. Do you think we're moving away from noises into action with this particular conference of parties?
Well, I think Boris Johnson rightly said 60 seconds because that is exactly what it is on a global scale, on a universal scale. It is going to take only 60 seconds to end the humanity and the planet. So I think my view on this is that there has to be consciousness provided by the leadership to the everyone on this earth. So you see one side, animals are being killed. The other side, Taliban is actually creating havoc. And here are the top leaders who are discussing about who owns how much. So it really boils down to the effect of environmental credit, environmental debit, and the collective term is environmental justice. So this is exactly what everybody's talking about. And I don't think it is going to have any impact on environment because I think it is in our own hand. Don't you think so, Neville?
Yeah, I think you're right, CK. I mean, I'm often asked about this subject, and I say it's not a problem for the planet; it's a problem for humanity. The planet will exist. I mean, look at Mars; it's inhabitable currently. So planets exist. They migrate. They mutate. During COVID, the planet existed, and it grew. You know, more greenery was out there than ever before. So this isn't an issue for the planet. So we need to really focus on what this issue is. This is human extinction. There was a great little advert that I saw from the UN, of all places, that had a mock conference. And the video showed Frankie the dinosaur, coming in and actually telling people that, we made ourselves extinct, but it wasn't our fault. There was a catastrophic action out there. The ice age came and it wiped us out. You're creating your own ice age. And it's true. Do we have to listen to a dinosaur? Do we have to come up with these comical or pretty abrupt ways of getting people on board to get people to act? I don't know. I mean, in some respects, these are shock tactics, and a lot of the problem with shock tactics is people say, "Oh, give me the old story." You're not real. And for every scientist in the past that was talking about the climate crisis, there was another scientist saying it's not a climate crisis. But the interesting thing is, I think those days are over. I think we've seen the end of the dissenters out there in the scientific world. The scientific world saying there's overwhelming evidence now, we're doing something wrong. And if we don't hit this 1.5 degree post-industrialization target, and if we go over it, we're on a slippery slope. What sort of slippery slope? Well, some people are going to have very hot temperatures, and other places are going to have very cold temperatures, and other places will be flooded. We're being inundated on the British TV, particularly the BBC, showing the effects of erosion in our country, in essence. So it's sea erosion against the even lighthouses that were put on, fairly safe ground, and now literally, if you look outside the lighthouse, you look straight down. There is no land there anymore. It's disappeared. It's slipped into the ocean. It's disappearing. And this is the effect of rising tides. So it is a phenomenon. We know it's real. So don't stick your head in the sand and say it's someone else's problem, because this is our problem. And I'm interested by the title of this COP26. Everyone refers to it as COP26. But it's the words of COP that really, to me, hit the nail on the head. This is a conference of the parties. And the parties just happen to be governments, but actually the parties is every single man and woman on the earth. 7.4 billion people. If we can get all of those 7.4 billion people working in unison, then we have a chance to save humanity. And it's 1 minute to midnight. I quite agree with Boris. He's a bit of a, a high and low type person. He tends to, anyone that has seen some of his speeches, they are a little bit of gusto and, high expectations and can-do attitude and all this sort of stuff, which in some respects I love. It's sort of, it galvanizes people. But this speech was slightly different, I think, from him. I think 1 minute to midnight reminds me of Einstein, who was asked if you had an hour to save the world, what would you do? And his answer was quite simple. I'd spend 55 minutes finding out what the problem is. Well, we've had 59 minutes, according to Boris's speech, and we're in the last minute. In the whole realm of things, that's a huge amount of time, but it's not enough time. So we now need to start to see far more decisive action. And you know me, CK, it's not about knowledge anymore. It's not about learning lots of stuff. It's about putting something into action. And if we can do that collectively, we've got a good chance of making it a success. And it's as simple as that.
Well, Neville, I fully agree with you and all the same voices which are now coming from across the world. But let me give you a little perspective and a little analysis of what is going on here. See, the analysis, as far as I'm concerned, and it's all scientific analysis. See, if the temperature goes up, what happens? The ice melts. When ice melts, what happens? There will be more water in the ocean. When there is more water in the ocean, the coastal cities are at risk. So as far as the planet is concerned, the migration which started 50,000 years back will happen and the cities will come inland. So this is all is a progression. And this is not for the first time this is happening. This has happened on the south coast of UK as far as 100 years back, where the towns have totally vanished under the ocean. In India, there are the entire civilization under the ocean. There is a whole lot of research going on in the Arabian Sea, where we keep finding ruins of human settlement on a continent-sized land masses, which is now submerged. So this is a process which is an ongoing process, and this will result in more rains. So that means this is exactly what is happening nowadays. There is more rain, more floods, and it's asking humans to change their cities for to the areas where there are no water, not too much of rain. So if you look at India, because I'm an Indian, all the cities will have to move northwards by certain hundreds of kilometers in time to come, and things like that. More rain will then bring more clouds. More cloud will then bring more, you know, cold weather, ice age, etc. And the cycle will repeat itself. So I think this is where it is going, and there is so much of noise in the world because most of the major cities like take Mumbai, Calcutta, New York, London, Singapore, Hong Kong, Shanghai, all of them, Tokyo, all of them are on the seashores. You know, all these big cities are at the seashore. And this is why they are saying, hey, my normal way of life will change. But the fact of the matter is, it has been changing all these while for last 5,000 years, even before that. So the only way we can live in harmony with the nature, and if you don't want, nature to punish us, is to make sure that we live in harmonious environments, create a balanced lifestyle, and this is exactly what is going on here. When people talk about debits and credits, it's basically the lifestyle related issue, which it will boil down to, because the biggest polluters in the world are United States, China, and India. So if you look at the pollution, it's because of the sheer numbers of people, you know. So if you say that, hey, you are the biggest polluter, as a, when you say cop, and if you say no, cop is fine, but you know this guy is the biggest polluter, then obviously there will be a defensive argument from the other side, and that is why this debit and credit and environmental justice is being discussed. So I believe that, you know, until unless we think as human beings, none of these policy makers will be able to do anything, because they will always keep fighting about how much you owe me and how much I owe you and what is the justice. This is what I feel. Sorry for long narration, but this is my viewpoint, Neval.
You're absolutely right, CK. You hit the nail on the head, and that's why it's a conference of parties. You've heard me speak many times on collaboration, working together, teamwork, and now's the time for that to happen. It's almost this is probably the wrong phraseology, but it is like playing a game in many respects. The game is sea waters are rising, but that doesn't mean that it's just those coastal areas that have the problem. We all have the problem. Every single country has the problem, whether you're landlocked or whether you're sea facing. We've all got the problem. And in the past, I think there's been too much of a, well, that's not my problem. That's yours. It's got a long way to come before it's a problem for me. And this is the non-negotiable piece. This is where the likes of David Attenborough, who again had a speech at the opening session, and Gutierrez from the UN. I mean, he stood up there and said, "We are digging our own grave." Well, we need to take the shovel, the spade, the digger away from the people that are digging this grave, and we need to start, not digging graves. It needs to be more action. And Greta Thunberg, love her or hate her, she's outside the conference saying blah, 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 which we all understand as lots of talk, no action. And we've seen it in our own lives. But I think this is different. This is a 2-week conference. A lot of people don't realise this is not just a meeting of minds for a day or two, where these big leaders get together, as they've been in Rome recently, in Italy. This is 2 weeks. This is 2 weeks of discussion and negotiation. And prior to coming into this, we now have a formula. This 1.5% increase in pre-industrial temperatures is generally agreed by everybody. But now we've got a formula whereby everyone now can say how they're contributing to this net zero arena. And at the moment, all of those contributions means that we're going to hit 2.7 degrees. Now, that's only 1.2 degrees higher. However, it's 1.2, it's almost 100% higher than the agreed target. And who knows whether the agreed target was set too high anyway, because we really do not know. And that's the unfortunate part. You know, it's a bit like kids playing with a balloon. You know, you push the balloon in one direction and all of a sudden it goes in another direction. And that's unfortunately what's happened with climate change over the last 20 odd years, ever since we've been talking about it. But we really are in last chance saloon, I think. This is the time where this conference of the parties means you and me. We need to take action individually. And I don't want to sidle out, you know, India specifically, because India were one of the first up on the lectern yesterday. And Prime Minister Modi said, we will be carbon neutral, net zero by 2070. Well, I'm afraid everyone said it needed to be 2050. That's 20 years too late for, in essence, the second biggest country in the world. And you're right, India is a big polluter. But the UK was a big polluter in the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution started in the UK. You know, we discovered the coal mines. We built mills. We built the whole economy on a dream that we didn't know actually how it was influencing the planet. And unfortunately today we know a lot more. So we shouldn't be blaming the big polluters of today, because they're only doing what everyone else has done with the resources that we currently have. But my point here is we need to be smarter than we were many years ago. We've got more data, we've got more information. We now know what effects of a coal-fired plant in one part of the world has on the global economy. We never knew that before. So now with all this data, with all this information, we need to use it wisely and we need to be smart. And equally, and I've heard a little bit of this, let's say the higher GDP, gross domestic product countries, need to be sponsoring, financing, supporting, call it what you like, all of those that struggle in this arena. And we know where we are. We know where the developing countries are. And we know where the developed countries are. And we now need to be working together in unison. So deforestation, it looks like we're now on a better path. Those countries like Brazil, that literally, you know, we need to understand why deforestation was important to Brazil. Well, they needed to increase their gross domestic product, so people had a better life. So what we need to be doing is looking at, well, don't cut down trees. We'll pay you not to cut down trees. And I'm talking about we, as in the global we, you know, 7.4 billion people effectively are contributing to Brazil not cutting down trees. In fact, they're contributing to Brazil planting trees. And that's just one simple example. And if we can agree on those, it's going to be an equation of sorts. You know, what are you going to give me if I stop doing this? And whether we like it or not, that's the negotiations that are currently happening. But it's going to be the rich countries, actually, the likes of the UK in particular, that will start to, you know, have this as a burden. But it shouldn't be as a burden. It should be in an investment in our society. It's a real tough one, be honest, because when all these leaders go back to their own countries, there's this, you know, 50,000 feet high wall placed around their country, because that's what they're concerned with. They're concerned with the economic and the social impact on their country. And we've just got to, this is one planet, India was neither fortunate or unfortunate in having India placed where it currently is. But if we don't do something about it, India won't be India in 40 years' time, as you said. We will have a migration of people and they will be moving away from their hometowns. Is that a good thing? I don't think it is, by what you hear about all these social economists that are talking. But we've got to work together. It's not a tough word, togetherness, being kind to one another. That's where we need to go back to our roots. But I'm going to be interested to see in the next, let's say, 3 years, where all these statistics that are currently being gathered, where they're going to go. What's the trajectory? Because at the moment, the trajectory is not in a good direction. What do you think of that?
Well, Neville, I stay in a place which is fairly stable. It's like a plateau. It's a very stable landmass in this area. To be very surprised, I went for a morning walk a couple of days back when it was raining, and I suddenly saw a sinkhole. Fortunately, there was a guard who was actually putting the barricades so that no vehicle can get in there. So even in a stable area, which is a plateau, there is no river nearby. It's a plateau, it's a dry, very close to the desert. We are having this situation where suddenly the ground starts to melt right under our feet, and we don't know where it's going to happen. It could happen in our houses also, because we think that our house is stable, but then suddenly the ground start to move. So I think it's not only the oceans, as you rightly pointed out. I think more rain will bring all this kind of muddy situations underground, which we have no clue. We can't even see things. So I think it's going to bring a lot of changes. Cities will have to be rebuilt. People will have to migrate northwards. I don't know how people will react in the UK, because there is no north. But at least in India, we have a north here, so we can migrate. But there are certain countries where there will be no north at all, or south in the southern hemisphere. So I think this is a very interesting topic. And I personally believe that we need to work together, as you rightly said. This meeting has just started, is going to continue for 2 weeks. I think we will revisit this as and when situations are announced in the media. We will come over in this platform and discuss, Neville. So thank you so much for joining us on this important subject. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Always a pleasure speaking with you, CK. And yes, we will see what unfolds. And the interesting thing is, more and more information will come out of this conference, and there'll be a lot of people putting that information together. And let's face it, at the end of this conference, there will be pledges. I mean, that's what this will be. But let's hope that these pledges are based in reality. What organizations, what countries, what you and me are going to do about it. And if those pledges turn into reality, then you never know. Who knows where we'll be in 5 years?
Fine, Neville. We will revisit this. Bye-bye for today.